open up for. All right. Welcome, everyone, to St. Mary's of Swanee's October Outreach online series. This is just a great way to give folks a taste of the St. Mary's offerings that they hold throughout the year and give you just a virtual connection option to the presenters that come to St. Mary's. So I'll do a quick introduction of myself and the program that I lead at St. Mary's, and then we'll kind of just jump right into some practices with that are representative of the type of stuff I've been leading at St. Mary's. So my name is Becca Impello. I'm a physical therapist and a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist. I've been doing all of those things for about coming up on 25 years or so. So I really love to lead people through experiences that connect them more directly and more deeply to their body, their emotions, their energy, all the elements that make up our being. And I've been leading retreats and various types of trainings for many years. I've been doing a retreat with my teaching partner, Kimberly Dry, at St. Mary's for the past 2 years. We've done a Beyond the Five Senses weekend retreat, and we have another one scheduled for March, which, by the way, March is a great time, I think, to come to St. Mary's. There's just a little pop of spring already happening. The daffodils are out, but it's still kind of cozy and cool, more than likely, maybe even cold. So it's usually a nice time to be up on the mountain to sort of start anticipating spring, kind of emerging from winter and giving yourself this nice retreat option. So that's a little plug for the time of year. But the Beyond the Five Senses retreat is a retreat where we really focus on a mindful exploration of our physical awareness, right? There's lots of practices at St. Mary's and elsewhere that focus more on the mind, the meditation, the centering prayer, and these are all wonderful practices and a part of this. But what we really try to tap into is give you some opportunities to really connect more deeply with your physical body, with your sensory awareness, with your even the subconscious and unconscious levels of awareness. So, we have our five senses that we're all aware of that help us interact with the external world. And certainly many of those can also be turned into improving our perception of ourselves, our body, our mind, our spirit, all of those things, right? But there are some other senses that we actually have in our nervous system that this offering today and that the retreat that I lead really try to highlight. And I'm just going to quickly explain those a little bit, just to give you a little bit of background. So within our body and brain, our nervous system, our being, there's this constant communication going on. And it's not just the brain sending out messages, sending out directions to the rest of the body. We're taking information in from the external world, but there's also this communication going from our body to our brain, okay? And that's happening all the time. The brain is receiving information from the body. And the majority of this is unconscious, right? We're not aware of it, and that's a good thing. We got too many other things to do. Some of it is sort of subconscious, right? Like we may have a sense of it at times or a vague sense of it. And then some of it is conscious. So if I were to ask you right now to just take note of how you're, in your body right now, do you need to go to the bathroom? Can you sense in your body any need for elimination? Okay, that would be a conscious awareness of the internal workings of the body. The same thing could be true of whether you needed to have something to drink or whether you were starting to get hungry, right? It is lunchtime, right? So those are senses that would come into your consciousness. But at the same time, we're not going to be sensing what's the pH level of our bloodstream, what's the, carbon dioxide, levels in the air that we're breathing. Those are things that we're not ever going to be conscious of. And we're not necessarily trying to, turn that into a conscious awareness, but it's something that's going on all the time. And these are practices that can just enhance this ability to sense our inner world, our inner physiology, or our body state. And that sense is called interoception. So that's your vocabulary word for the day, interoception, right? Like perception, but intero, so internal. So that interoception is an awareness piece on all those conscious levels, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, that's going on all the time. And it's mostly that communication from the body to the brain. And the stronger that connection is, or the more accurate that communication link is, just sort of the better job our body does, our brain does at maintaining our physiology in a state that's going to keep us healthy. It's going to help us respond to stresses or illnesses. That's just going to help us, function in the world better, right? So anything we can do to improve our interoception is a boost to our overall health and well-being, right? So there's a lot of evidence around things like meditation, mindfulness, certainly, movement practices that indicate that it strengthens our interoceptive ability, right? And makes our brain and body communication stronger, more accurate, more timely. All right. So let's jump into a little bit of a practice. Okay. So just sitting where you are, I want you to see if you can find a way to feel your own heartbeat. So this could be hands over the heart. It could be finding your pulse, like at your wrist or on the side of your neck, right? And I just want you to see, where can you find your own pulse, your own heart rate for a few moments here. You might close your eyes. Okay, our visual input takes a lot of our attention span, right? So when we close our eyes or divert our gaze, that can help expand our ability to sense inward. So just spend a few moments. I'm going to get quiet for a second, just feeling your heart rate. You don't have to count it. You don't have to analyze anything. Just want you to connect to it, to feel it, to sense it. Right now, I want you to sense your body temperature. Now, you don't have to necessarily feel anywhere, but just if you've got some exposed skin, you're going to notice a certain temperature on your skin. Maybe you notice an area of the body that feels warmer. Like right now, my arms feel cool, but my sort of center, my belly, my lower abdomen, my pelvis on the chair feels a little warm. Just taking a moment to just sense your own sort of, temperature. Do you feel cool? Do you feel hot? Do you feel just right? All right. And then last thing I want you to spend a few moments noticing right here is just your breathing, right? So just bring your awareness to your breath moving in and out of your body. Now, the breath one is a little trickier because almost immediately when we turn our attention to our breath, it's going to change, right? You're going to likely take a deeper breath or a slower breath because you just brought your awareness to it, okay? But the best you can to not alter the breath a whole lot, but just to notice what's the quality of your breath feel like? What's the general sort of rate or rhythm of it feel like? What part of your body is moving? All right, so we've taken a little snapshot of a few things, and I'll call you back to those a little bit later at various times, just to, take another look. One of the really the main thing that our nervous system does, like its main job, is differentiation. There's another vocabulary word for you. So our nervous system is really good, or tries to be really good at differentiating, detecting difference, detecting change, right? It's not just an absolutist, right? It doesn't just notice this temperature and go, oh, that temperature is cold. That temperature might feel cold, but only if it's relative to a temperature you just recently experienced that was warmer. right? If you had experienced a temperature that was colder, your brain might actually, interpret this temperature I'm hypothetically talking about as warm, right? So all of our nervous system's sort of assessments on a day-to-day basis, minute to minute, is based on, is there a difference? What has changed? And is this change gone too far and something I need to regulate and send out hormones or send out action? Tell this person to go get something to eat, tell this person to go to the bathroom, whatever. So it's always detecting difference. So that's one of the things we're going to try to do with this. Now, we're going to do a breath practice, right? I want you just to sit comfortably. This is going to be a breath practice that intentionally tries to increase our energy level, to elevate our heart rate, elevate our, breathing respiration rate. So if you have any concerns about elevating your blood pressure, your heart rate a little bit, right? We're not going to do it to some kind of extreme. I just like to give that caveat. That's what this practice is going to be about. And if that's something that doesn't feel safe or secure to you, you can observe and listen rather than participate. All right, so this is called a bellows breath, right? And you're going to have the option to add arm movements and perhaps even bigger movements. So I'm going to give you a couple of choices, right? The breath itself is going to be a fast sort of in and out, like a bellows, like if you were pumping a bellows on a fire. So the breath will be like this, kind of a hyperventilation, right? All right, so that's the first part. The arm movement could be up and down. So inhale, reach up. Exhale, pull down. If you want to make it smaller, you might reach out in front. If you want to make it smaller still, you might keep it just to the hands. Right now, if you want to make this even a little more impactful, you could turn this into an up and down from your seat, right? That's going to involve more of the body. The effects are going to be a little bit greater. So you've got a couple choices there, movement or no movement. That movement can be big or small, and that movement can incorporate the whole body or just the hands and the arms, okay? So we're going to do our bellows breath for 10 rounds of breath. And then we'll take just a big breath in and kind of hold it a split second or two or three, and then let it all out. We're probably going to repeat this a second time around if you choose to, okay? So let's give this bellows breath a try. You can always stop early if you start to feel just uncomfortable in any way, too lightheaded or dizzy or anything like that, okay? So here we go. That bellows breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, making your movements, whatever you'd like to do. I'm going to stay in my chair, by the way, and simply do the arms overhead. Okay, so here we go. 10 rounds of bellow breath. Here we go. Take a big breath in and hold it. Let it out as soon as you need to. And then you're just going to pause and observe. You're going to see what sensations you feel in your body. And do another round, 10 breaths again. Here we go. Big breath in. Hold it a second or two or three, you choose. Again, observe, maybe closing your eyes to turn your awareness more inward. We're going to do one more round. If you want to choose to opt out, perfectly fine. Here we go, 10 more breaths. Big breath in. Let it go as soon as you feel that need to release and observe. All right, I want you to find your heart rate again. So place your hand either back on your heart or on your pulse. Likely it feels a little faster, maybe a little stronger. Just see what differences you can detect. How about the temperature on your skin? Has anything changed, or just the temperature in your body? what's your breath like? Now we're going to just stay here for another few moments to just continue to observe those three things specifically. Your heart rate, maybe checking your pulse or placing your hand on your chest from time to time to feel it. Temperature in your body or on your skin. And your breath. Keep observing. Our practice there with the bellows breath elevated all those things, right? And now as we're sitting here, I want you just to, see, can you sense, even if it's not a direct sensory experience, right? It doesn't have to just be these things you can feel on your skin or in your pulse, but just see if you can sense that settling down of that heightened activity, right? We increased and elevated things, and now that we're sitting still, we can observe that return to baseline. And this is a practice that's been shown in some studies to be, a really beneficial thing. This ability to, this observation of your system going to an elevated, or later on, it'll be more of a lowered state, and then watching, feeling, sensing it return back to baseline is a practice that kind of helps us with the day-to-day fluctuations, even on an unconscious level of our physiology, responding and then returning, or dipping and then returning, kind of doing its fluctuations throughout the day. All right, so that was a breath exercise. We'll do another breath exercise later, and we'll do a little meditation around the breath as well. But now we're going to do some movement practices. And so movement practices are going to give us ability to sense physically in our body, right? To sense, joint movement, to sense muscle activation or muscle stretch, right? And again, to detect that change that happens, right? When we do something. All right, so you can do this. We're going to do this first part seated, and in a few moments, you'll have the option to either stay seated or to come up to standing. All right, so sit up nice and tall. Try to draw those shoulders back just a little bit and reach up real tall through the crown of your head, just getting up as tall as you want. And then just begin to turn your head right and left. And the first thing that we can, sort of notice, or that's being noticed even in an unconscious level of our, nervous system, is, do we turn as far to the right as we do to the left? And does that endpoint feel different on one side versus the other? So these are things I encourage my yoga students in my classes to, just kind of be observing in an ongoing basis, because just that, it's not that you have to do anything with that information either immediately or ever, right? There's just differences, but detecting that, really taking note of those differences, is feeding that that ability of the brain to differentiate and to be better at that skill. All right, now let's bring that ear towards one shoulder, and then back up to center, and then drop that ear towards the other shoulder. And again, see what you notice about the two sides. What's different there? How far does that head go to the ear? And make all these movements, just gentle, nothing forceful. All right. Now we're going to come back. That's going to be kind of our snapshot, or one of them. So we'll come back and look at that motion of the neck in a little bit. All right, now let's do some nice big shoulder rolls. Pull those shoulders forward and up towards the ears. Pull them back, squeeze them down. I like to take a nice big breath in. Exhale it on the way down. Now you can keep it right here, or you can make this a bigger motion and start to circle with your elbows and not just your shoulders, right? So like you're drawing a circle out to the side with your elbows. And if you want to take this even a little bit further, you could make it a full arm circle, starting to sweep those arms up and around. So some things just to observe as we go. You may observe, tingles or pops and creaks in the shoulder blades. You might feel that blood moving. You might feel those joints loosening up. Next time those shoulders go back or arms go back and down, let them stay there. Circle out the wrists a few times. Let those arms get heavier, heavier, like gravity is pulling them down towards the floor. All right, and then let's tilt the head to one side. And as you tilt to the side, take that opposite arm and just press it out or reach it away. And then relax that arm as your head comes back up. And then tilt it to the other side and reach out through that arm. And then bring it back up and keep going. So the opposite arm from where you're tilting your head, lengthens, reaches out. You get to control how strong of a reach that is. Anytime you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you're welcome to do so. Again, it may help you bring your awareness more to the internal body senses. All right, now back to center. Bring those hands up to the heart. Sit up nice and tall. Pull back with your shoulder blades, your elbows, your hands, giving a little arch to your upper back. And then push forward like you're pushing closed a door and get a little rounded. All right, now let's do this with breathing. Inhale and pull. Exhale and push. You can make this bigger if you want, right? Bigger in the spine. Maybe drop the chin to the chest as you push. Maybe lifting the chin up as you pull. These are options, right? You get to choose how much movement and where you want to put that movement in your body. Try to feel those shoulder blades squeeze tight and then stretch apart. Maybe feel the same thing in the chest and the collarbones going broad and then kind of compressing or collapsing 3 more times. One more. Now pull those arms back one more time and let them drop down. All right, now just a little bit more for the neck. Sit tall, drop your head towards the left shoulder. Okay, this may be opposite of what it looks like on the screen, because I don't know if I'm mirrored or not. But drop your left ear towards your left shoulder, just whatever the weight of your head will give you. All right. And then the right arm, you're going to do some movements with the right arm. They can be big or small. Inhale, I'm going to reach that right arm up towards the ceiling, just kind of bringing it up alongside the head or as high as I want to go. And then exhale, I'm going to pull that elbow sort of to my waist, maybe to the back of the waist even. And then inhale, reach it back up. My head is still just tilted over to the left. And I'm going to keep this movement going with the arm. Exhale to pull back and down. Inhale to reach up. Pull. And so you should be noticing sensation on that right side of the neck and into the top of that right shoulder. You're creating a stretch when you pull that arm down, so you can lighten that up, or you can make that a little more aggressive if you want a little more stretch. You can even change sort of the angle or the direction. Okay, we're going to do 3 more movements of the arm. All right, I'm going to leave that arm pulling down. And now I'm going to come back to the head. I'm going to turn my head so the nose goes down sort of towards my left shoulder. And then the nose can come back to face forward and then maybe even turn a little bit up towards the ceiling. And just rotate that head over here a couple more times. These are small movements. Still pulling my right shoulder back, my right elbow back and down, but I can lighten that up if it gets too intense. Last 2 turns of the head. All right, now let that arm come back to your lap. Bring that head slowly up to center and pause. So just see what you observe, what you notice, what comes into your awareness as you just observe your body. Specifically, take note of, how your right side of your neck, your right shoulder, your right arm even feel compared to your left. Like, even though I didn't involve my legs at all, my right hand is resting on my thigh. So it just somehow feels like my right thigh is lower than my left one. Like my whole right arm feels longer and heavier, and the right side of my neck feels more spacious, like there's just a lot more room. Feels like my right shoulder is a couple inches below my left shoulder. So that's just an example. You don't have to observe the same phenomenon that I do. I'm just letting you know some things to take notice of. All right, now, of course, we're going to do that on the other side, but what we just did there was an example of differentiation. The brain detected that things felt different here on the right side after we did that asymmetrical movement. It felt different than it did before, and it feels different than the other side. Now that's going to fade. Like if we just sat here for longer and longer, eventually our right arm and right side of the neck would start to feel the same as the left. We would sort of lose that sensory difference, right? But just by observing that in our body, in our movement practices, we give our nervous system practice. And we know what practice makes. Practice makes improvements. Practice makes us better at things, right? So it helps our nervous system be better at detecting those differences more accurately. All right, so let's work on this other side. So let's first just do a couple of shoulder rolls again, or if you want to do the elbow or the arm roll, just do a couple of, movements there to kind of bring symmetry back in, right? Moving both sides at the same time versus the asymmetrical thing that we're about to do with one side at a time. All right, and then sit up tall, tilt that head towards the right, so right ear towards the right shoulder. Start with that. Now, of course, you may have started out with differences like the right side being tighter than the left or something like that. That's obviously gonna influence what you sense at the end of things as well. All right, so now this left arm is gonna do our movement, or the arm on the opposite side from where you tilted your head. Inhale and reach up. Exhale and pull it down. Again, you're in control, right? So you can experiment. Does it feel like you get a little, better stretch if you pull more behind you versus if you pull, kind of straight into the side of your waist? Use that breath as a good pacemaker, right? Kind of guiding your pace of movement, keeping it at a, fairly slow and regular rhythm. Good. 3 more pulls with the arm. And now let that arm sort of stay heavy and down, adjust it as needed. And now we add this neck movement rotation. Turn the chin, the nose down towards the shoulder, and then try giving it a turn up. Again, these might be small, really small movements. That's fine. We don't expect them to be big. They don't have to be any certain way. A couple more times. Curiosity is a really good quality to, cultivate with this work. Just being curious about what you find, not judgmental, not going after some kind of fix, but just really trying to be curious about what your experience is. All right, let's bring that arm back into your lap. Slowly bring the head up and observe. And so notice the right side, left side, from the neck, through the shoulder, all the way down the hand to the hands. Again, you're likely to feel some differences because we just stimulated that left side. It may not be as big as the first observation after we did the right side, because we have now done both, right? So we've stimulated both pretty recently. Do a quick check back in with your heart rate. The temperature, how are you feeling in your body? Like, I'm much warmer now. The surface of my skin no longer feels cool like it did when I walked in here and sat down at the beginning. All right, now let's do just a few again, shoulder rolls to kind of put symmetry back in, and then we're going to observe our neck range of motion that we looked at the beginning. All right. All right, so sit up tall, shoulders slightly back, and just take that easy turn right and left. And you may do this and maybe thinking, well, Becca, I don't really notice anything different. And that's perfectly fine. There's, I can think of two quick reasons why you might not notice any change, right? Maybe nothing really changed, right? You did all that stuff, but it didn't necessarily impact in a big enough way to detect, at least, any change, right? And then tilt the head side to side and see what that feels like. It could also be that change has happened, but you're not quite able to perceive that change. So your measurement tool in your brain maybe isn't quite, accurate, or maybe not accurate, it's not the right word, isn't quite sensitive enough yet to detect smaller changes or differences, right? So that's a possibility as well. All right, come back to the center. All right, so we're going to do next another little breath practice just to kind of settle us. It's a meditation, really, more than a breath practice. And then we'll do another little segment of movement. And this second segment of movement will have the option to be in standing, right? You could stay seated if you choose. And I'll give you the sort of the modifications or variations that you would do seated. All right. And then after we do that second movement, little practice, we'll do a calming breath practice. It'll be sort of the opposite of what we did at the beginning with the bellows breath. And then we'll leave a little bit of time for questions and answers at the end. Okay. So this breath or meditation is really a breath-focused meditation. All right. So I just want you to get really comfortable. You could stay upright. That might be a good idea since we're not finished yet. And lying down might put you to sleep. But if you prefer to lie down, just because that would make your body comfortable and you'd be more able to focus, by all means, you could lie down or recline. All right. Or you can stay in an upright position. All right. I do recommend either closing your eyes or trying to just drop your gaze to something that really doesn't have a lot of visual input, that doesn't have, a lot of, light or color or something. So maybe right down at the floor, that sort of thing, or at your hands. All right. And we're going to take this, what I like to call an interoceptive journey through the body with our breath. It's like we're going to try to hitch a ride with our breath as it moves into our throat, our lungs, as it impacts our abdomen, right? And this is an abbreviated version. I do a much longer version of this at times, right? So I'll be calling your awareness to different parts of your body, internal. And some of these parts of the body, I'm going to be honest, you're probably not going to be able to directly sense, right? You're not going to be able to detect what the inside of your lungs feels like, probably, right? But I want you to use your imagination as best you can. Imagine that internal part of your body as best you can through the practice. All right, so let's start by bringing the awareness to the nostrils. And as you take the next couple of breaths, just see if you can feel the inside of your nose. And can you feel the coolness of the air on the way in? Maybe you can detect how it's a little bit warmer on its way out. Perhaps you can feel the direction of air movement, the movement in and up in the nostrils versus the movement down and out of the nostrils. And there may be more that you can sense in your own body. Maybe one side's a little congested and you can tell that as you're breathing in and out, as you're bringing your awareness to the inside of your nose. Your breath can be any rate and rhythm, right? Just a nice, easy breath. Don't have to make it your deepest breath ever. Now let's go a little further in. Try to imagine or sense the back of your throat. It's always okay to sort of clear the throat or swallow. These are ways that may help bring your awareness there. But see if you can sort of start to feel or imagine at least what the feeling would be like. Your breath coming into the throat to travel into the lungs, and then the breath leaving on the exhale and moving back through the throat. Again, the temperature is different. It's probably hard to sense, but imagine you walked outside on a really cold day and you took that breath and you could feel the cold air hit the back of your throat. So you remember what that feels like, right? Or you breathe in something that's got some kind of acrid tang to it and you feel that hit the back of your throat, right? So you've had an experience where you were able to sense your throat. Or when you have a sore throat, right? You know what that interior of the throat feels like. So right now you're imagining, that area, even if you can't directly feel it. The throat gets a little bit bigger naturally when we inhale. The opening gets a little bit narrower, less rigid as we exhale. That's something you can imagine. And we'll go a little deeper still. Let's go on down, kind of where the throat splits into the esophagus and the trachea, sort of right behind the breastbone, the top of the trachea, right before the trachea branches into the right and left sides, right? So I want you to imagine that interior part of your body. And again, use your imagination. Imagine it getting a little fuller, a little more rigid as the breath comes in, a little softer as the breath leaves. Again, if you were breathing in all of a sudden really cold air or really wet, moist air, you could feel that perhaps in the chest, right? We're going to go one more phase deeper. We're going to see if we can imagine the inside of the lungs. Right? Again, you can call on those times when you've been sick and you've had congestion or inflammation in your lungs, or when you breathed in something that was a little noxious or, smoke or something like that, and you could feel it in your lung tissue, right? That's probably not the case right now, but use that memory of sensation to sort of imagine the inside of your lung tissue filling up, inflating, and then softening and deflating. Now, on the exterior, you can probably feel, some movement against your clothes, the rib cage, the chest expanding and then contracting, right? So that can serve as just a way to tap into what's happening inside the lungs themselves. Can you detect whether one side of your, lungs, one lung fills up more easily than the other? Again, if you're well and, in normal kind of homeostasis, you probably can't detect that. But if you've ever had congestion that really settled in a part of the lung or pneumonia in a certain area of the lung, then you may have really been able to feel a difference internally in terms of how your lungs were functioning. Let's take just 3 more breaths. Maybe there was a place in the journey that you were a little more easily connected to. You might kind of finish with your awareness back on the throat or the nostrils if you wanted to. All right, and then just let your eyes open. Right. So again, those types of practices where we really, give ourselves some time to be with some of our internal functionings, our internal world, can be helpful for improving both the conscious, but also the subconscious and the unconscious levels of interoception that are going on all the time. All right, so we're going to do another short movement practice. I'm going to back up a bit so that more of me is visible. And this is where you could choose to stand, right? So if you want to stay seated in the chair, I'll be referencing sort of the ways to do these practices, adapted to staying seated. All right. All right, so we're going to start out with just simply raising the arms overhead and stretching up tall. You're grounding down through your seat or through your feet, and then exhale, releasing. Now we're going to add a little bit of a fold forward to this. Please soften your knees if you're standing. If you're seated, you're just folding over those thighs as far as you want, and then rising back up tall. So we're up tall, stretch, and then we're folding. Again, if you're standing, you're doing a nice knee bend to come down. There's no certain distance you need to get to, but just try going forward or down, and then back up, tall. Nice big breath. Two more times. Good. Come all the way back up top, but let your arms stay down. All right, now we're going to rise up onto tiptoes. If you're seated, you're lifting your heels, right? And then dropping them down. Of course, if you're standing, we've got the added element of balance. Feel free to touch or hold on to your chair if you want to. Coming up and down. I'm just checking out how's my balance? What's the feeling in my feet? This is a part of the body we haven't paid any attention to yet. What's that sense of your feet? I feel a little stiffness. My joints are, kind of really making themselves, known to my awareness as I rock up and down on these toe joints for the first time. 3 more up and down on those balls of the feet. Heels up, heels down. All right, now if you're standing, I want you to go ahead and just take a big step forward with one leg. Okay, this is what it would look like from the side. If you're seated in the chair, try taking yourself sideways in the chair so that you're still sitting down, but you've got one knee bent in front. And the other leg you can try stretching out as much as you want in the back, or it could stay bent. All right, so that's your seated option. All right, so we're standing in this lunge position. All right. And we're going to reach the arms up and overhead and pull back towards our back pockets. If you're seated in the chair, maybe you do one arm and keep your back arm holding on to the chair to stay secure. That's a good option. All right, so push into those feet as much as you can. Taking that big sweep up, pull back. I like to breathe in as I reach, exhale as I pull. One more time. And then release those arms. If you're seated, turn back to the front. If you're standing, just step those legs together. Pause for just a quick moment to observe the right and the left leg, right? There's some differences there. And then take it to the other side if you're in the chair, or step with the other leg back. Push down into those feet. And again, let's reach one or both arms up and then pull back and down. Reach up. Pull down. Two more times. Right, and then sit back to the front or bring the feet together. And again, just observe the sensation in your body, maybe some right and left differences. Maybe they feel even. Do a quick glance at your heartbeat, your heart rate, your pulse. Mine is picked up a little with this movement. Temperature, still feeling warmer. All right, one more. It's an asymmetrical movement. If you're seated in the chair, it's going to be pretty obvious. The movement's pretty similar to standing. If you're standing, you just have sort of the added energy of pushing down into your legs if you want. All right, we're going to take one arm. Doesn't matter which one. Just pick it up like you're waving hello at somebody. The other hand, if possible, keep it in contact with your body somewhere. So let it slide up and down the outside of your leg, or if you're seated, maybe it slides, kind of through the top of the thigh. So we're going to inhale and reach up and over, letting that hand slide down the leg, and then come back to center. We're going to continue on the same side. And you can make this bigger, more vigorous, or less, depending on what feels right in your shoulder, right? So if reaching that arm all the way overhead is a little too much, try putting that hand on your head or on your chest. Right? Keep that other hand sort of touching the body, sliding up and down the thigh or up and down the outside of that leg. Got to keep your hip and or all the way down to your foot there, grounded on the side that you're stretching away from. Last 3, 2, and 1. And then come back to center and just let, your arms relax at your sides. And again, I want you just to observe, where do you feel, a highlighted sensation in your body? Right, that side that you were stretching, maybe the place where you were touching. And compare that right and left difference, right? Noticing how, one side might feel longer or higher than the other from that stretch. So again, we're practicing giving our brain this opportunity to detect difference. All right, now we want to even it up. So let's go to the other side, pick up that other hand, waving hello. The opposite arm can touch the body somewhere. And then let's stretch up and over. Again, make some creative, changes. If you need to keep the arm, not reaching, it can, stay at your side, or it can come to your head or your heart. Keep that side that you're stretching really grounded, either into the seat of the chair through your hip or into the floor through that foot. Three more. All right, and then pause, come back to center, back to neutral. Observe the 2 sides of the body. Check back in with your heart rate. Maybe that temperature on your skin, how your breath feels. All right, and then I want you just to move right to the place you want to take your, this last breathing exercise, which is more geared towards relaxation. So that could be back into a seat. It could be lying down or reclined. Get as much support as possible. So if you've got a chair behind you, lean all the way back. If you don't have any support behind you, maybe shift up to the wall if you can, or lie down. I'm going to again recommend that you close your eyes. If you want to have a hand resting on your belly or your chest so that you can feel your breath, sometimes that's helpful in just detecting, and being present with your breath rhythm. So that's an option you can take. Now, the breath that we're going to do here is sometimes called vagal brake breathing. Vagal refers to the vagus nerve. So that's neuroanatomy that we get into a little bit more in the workshop retreat, or in the retreat, but I won't go into now. And then brake is just like what it sounds. It's like putting on the brakes, right? So that's the image that we're going to actually use for our little breath practice here. I want you just to bring to mind an image that's soothing and peaceful to you, of some sort of path or road, okay, or trail, and you're sort of just traveling gently downhill on this path. It could be a nice road along the coast, or your favorite trail through the woods, or the path from your house down to your mailbox if it has a little bit of a slope, right? And you could be on your feet, you could be on your skateboard, your scooter, your bike, your car. You're traveling, right? And each time you exhale, I want you to imagine that you're putting the brakes on in some manner. You're slowing yourself down. You're slowing that exhale breath down. And then the inhale, it's sort of like the brake just got released. And the inhale goes a little bit faster. And then as you get to your exhale, you're putting the brakes on. You're slowing down. You're coming almost all the way to a stop. And then when you inhale, comes off the brake. Goes a little faster. Exhale, and you're slowing that exhale down. And so continue in that manner, maybe using the visual of, traveling down this gentle sloping path or road. Each inhale, it's like the brake gets released. And then on the exhale, you're just gently, steadily putting the brake back on, slowing your exhale down. after you've done, several rounds, maybe by now, or maybe you need a few more moments, perhaps you can indeed come all the way to a stop. And at the end of the exhale, you can pause. Pause the breath. And then as soon as you need to inhale, it's like you let off the brake and let things move again as you breathe in. And then the exhale is another opportunity to apply the brakes gently, steadily, until you're all the way to the end of the breath or all the way at a stop. And then you might just linger there, still and stopped for a split second, or maybe it's more like a couple seconds. And then inhale and allow it to move again. Exhale, put those brakes into the breath, slow down, come to a stop. We'll just repeat that for about 5 more rounds of breath. And just staying wherever you are. You can let go of the specific imagery and that breaking and stopping with the exhale. Just allow your breath to be natural. But I want you just to check back in. This can be just a general check-in, like how are you feeling overall? Where's your energy shifted to? Has it changed, from earlier in the practice or before you logged on? If you want to get back to those specific markers that we've been checking in with, what's the temperature of your skin feel like, or the temperature in your body? Your pulse or your heart rate is easy to feel or find again. Check in on that. We're going to sort of rise out of this, right? So if you're lying down, stretch out or move a little bit and make your way back up to a seat. If you're seated, then, maybe you roll those shoulders or scoot forward and just sort of bring yourself back. And, if we had gotten really, really, really relaxed, like in a deeper relaxation or shavasana, which we do get to practice in the retreat, you might, sort of be able to observe sort of this return again from that real relaxed state back to a more sort of normal awake state, just as we observed our heightened, energetic state after the bellows breath, kind of slowly return back to our baseline. So the things we got to practice today, we practiced differentiation, right? Noticing and detecting difference. We certainly practiced tapping into awareness in our body, just bringing our attention into our body. We did a lot of proprioception awareness, even though I didn't really talk about that. That's just knowing where your body is in space. Each time I told you to pick up your arm or put your arm in a certain position, you were using that proprioception, knowing where your body is. And then we did lots of interoceptive work by trying to tune in and boost our awareness of things happening in our internal body states. So I would love to just open this up, if Mary Beth, if that's okay, to anyone who might have a question about anything, whether it was stuff that we did today or stuff that we do additionally in the Beyond the Five Senses retreat. So I think you're all muted. So if you do want to ask a question, feel free to type it in the chat or just to unmute yourself and ask. If if you've enjoyed the experience, but you're, got to move back on to work or whatever's going on, you can exit yourself at any time. But like I said, we always appreciate you joining us. Lucy, you have your hand raised. You want to ask a question? You're still mute. Oh,
Yes,
there you
please.
go. Yeah.
Thank you. I was just curious because you said in the workshop that you would tap into more about the vagal nerve. Could you just quickly say something about the link of breathing out slowlier and stopping to breathe
So the
with the vagal?
vagus nerve, just real quickly, the vagus nerve is really the driver of our parasympathetic nervous system. So if you've heard of fight or flight, like sympathetic nervous system versus rest and digest, that's a real quick and simple sort of differentiation. But the vagus nerve is the sort of the captain of the parasympathetic, which is the system of, the state of our nervous system that helps us do things like recover, restore, rest, all of that kind of stuff. So it's more of our calm, more, kind of at ease state versus sympathetic, where we're more like, activated, we're more active, we might be, stressed. So the vagus nerve, there are certain practices that tend to stimulate or enhance the vagus nerve's function, such as breathing slower and longer on the exhale. There are other techniques as well. So that was why we did that to help enhance our relaxation response in our nervous system by doing a certain type of breathing. Does that answer your question, Lucy? You're muted, so if you want to, yeah, there you go.
Yes. Does can that trigger like a PTSD syndrome release?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go too far in saying that it can, definitively do something for a diagnosis like PTSD, but certainly things that help us, enhance our parasympathetic nervous system's operations, or that enhance the vagus nerve's operations, can potentially help us cope better with stress in general. And certainly a more significant condition like PTSD, those would be elements that might also be utilized in the management of that or the treatment of that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrea, for being here. All right. Anyone else have a question? You can just pop on, you can just unmute and just go ahead and talk. There's a small enough group. All right. Well, I don't know if Mary Beth has anything to say before we close up, but I'll let her speak if she'd like.
Well, thank you so much, Becca, for being with us today. This was just a wonderful workshop, and we appreciate all of you being with us today. And we invite you to come and see Becca in person March 14th through the 16th in 2025. It is not too early to sign up for that workshop. You can sign up online at our website at stmaryswanee.org, or you can just contact me directly at our reservations at our phone number or email. Either one, you all have my email. But we would love to see you here, and you can enjoy a whole weekend with exercises and sessions just like this. It is a
Mary Beth,
wonderful weekend.
I made the pitch before you got on that March is a really nice time to be on the mountain, that you're getting a taste of spring, but it's still kind of cozy winter retreat feeling. So there's a lot to enjoy about the mountain in March.
It
So
is. It's great. It's great. Well, thank you, everyone.